There's an epidemic of short-term thinking right now. It's killing people's ability to build.
If you want to connect with business people in a social media style environment, you've got to go on LinkedIn.
This is an investment strategy. You're choosing to invest time and a little bit of money to build an asset that's going to be worth literally millions of pounds over the next...
I love it. It's called Monopoly. The messages I'm receiving on LinkedIn today are not going to be working in 6 to 12 months' time.
There are an awful lot of people out there telling people how to make money on LinkedIn, and most of what's out there is frankly crap. And I think we're in the middle of that right now.
AI is going to take over more and more and more, replace more and more people. Having strong connections, having that tribe, having that community might just save you completely from whatever's coming.
Welcome back to the Grown Up Business Podcast. I'm super excited for this season. We're jumping right in, and you're in for a treat. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to build a network, and if you're an entrepreneur who wants to build lasting connections that generate value, income, and over millions of pounds, I would say, in business from LinkedIn, you are listening to the absolute right podcast. I'm so excited today. I'm bringing you not just somebody that I've learned a ton from, but somebody I've actually really excited, and we'll tell you about this at the end of the podcast, gone into business with to help my clients solve the issue of how do you really make great connections and great money off LinkedIn. So I'm super excited to welcome Mike Jones to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Hey, good to have you, man.
Yeah, amazing to be here, mate. It's this is
Fun.
not work. Definitely not work.
This is definitely not work, right? So we're in a brand new studio, which is super exciting here in the middle of the country, which is great. So I just want to run through a couple of your highlights from your bio from LinkedIn. And obviously we will put a link to your profile below the show notes. But in the last decade, you've generated over £100 million of revenue from LinkedIn for yourself, but also your partners and your whole of the people that you've trained. Mm-hmm. You've been training people on this for nearly, I think you're saying to me, well over 15 years in terms of that. You've got a really kind of technical background, which I love, and you've really kind of built SaaS businesses that you've scaled. You've helped all the 3 authors get their books onto the best-selling Times list using your strategies. You've helped TEDx speakers build massive communities. You've launched 4 different products that have gone on to make millions of pounds in annual recurring revenue, all through harnessing the power of social selling, and in particular LinkedIn, right? Which is kind of like, and we actually got introduced by a third connection who put the 2 of us together and said, you guys should talk, you guys should meet. I think you could do something exciting, right?
Yeah.
And in just the first few months of working with you, massively impressed with what happened to my LinkedIn profile. You gave me the challenge of now I had so many inbound leads, I had to literally talk about hiring somebody to manage them. So thank you for that, which is great.
It's a common problem.
But in today's conversation, really what we want to do is kind of like, I want to talk about like 7 steps to LinkedIn success, which is the kind of things that you really kind of helped me understand, because I think we also want to bust some myths at the moment about things like what should you really be focusing on. And both of us are quite kind of passionate about, there are an awful lot of people out there telling people how to make money on LinkedIn, and most of what's out there is frankly crap and rubbish. And we want to kind of really kind of pull back the curtain on the industry about what really works on LinkedIn, as opposed to what everyone will sell you a course telling you works on LinkedIn. So we're going to do that today. So just walk us through your journey. Like why social selling, and why LinkedIn in particular? Why has that become something you're so passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, and I truly am as well. And I don't think I realized just how passionate I am about this until maybe even as recent as last year.
Right.
Like I knew I liked it, and I knew I'm good at making money from it. But it's really, I mean, certainly over the last 12 months, 18 months, really, it's really kind of just talk about finding your purpose and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like, what purpose? It's all a bit. Where's the ROI on that? I don't know. Is there one? Maybe there is. I'm sure there is. Maybe I should find one. Well, I think when you find something that just gets you excited and feel, as we said, it doesn't feel like work, it feels like fun.
Yeah.
And for me, that is small business, especially. I work with corporates and all the rest of it, but I'm entrepreneurial. I was born that way,
right?
As many of us were, and we carry this burden with us through our lives, and sometimes we make some.
So always been entrepreneur? You say in your profile sort of you started your first business at 18, but I
think prior to that, I mean, it's going way back, growing up, Dad was sort of terminally ill from being 13, 14, so
oh wow,
one of those things. Not much fun. I was the oldest, and so basically, as soon as I finished 15, finished GCSEs and stuff, I was one of the oldest in the year. I went and got myself a job selling windows to people because I wanted to move out, get a flat and a car, which I did. Which probably was a bit premature at 15, but nevertheless.
Setting
It
goals
was the
early on,
90s.
right? It was the 90s. You could do that. Yeah.
You could do that. It was fine. And you know, that's that early sort of lead gen. That, you know, I remember very vividly the day when I started that job, going out, and I think I was stood in a garden centre handing flyers to people, trying to flog them, whatever it was, conservatory probably. And somebody said, "Yeah, you're going to get leads." And for me, you know, growing up in Hull, Leeds is the big city down the M62. I went, what do you mean I'm going to get leads? Well, you know, you stop somebody and you tell them about these things that we can do for them, and if they're interested, you get the details, and that's a lead.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And, you know, if that person then goes on to buy it, we'll give you more money.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to know. Great stuff. So you know, that was my foray into lead generation, demand generation, all that kind of thing, and I was quite good at it. You know, I managed to sort of, in that little world, very quickly was, you know, managing branches for home improvements companies and things like that.
Wow.
And they all believed I was 20 and gave me cars and things as well. So it's fantastic. But, you know, it taught me very quickly how to capture interest in somebody. And back in the 90s, the guys who were teaching me were like old school 70s guys that, you know, a lot of ways that you certainly wouldn't use these days, and probably I'm not that proud of thinking back on it in terms of, you know, that kind of hard sell stuff. But that teaches you the wrong way to do things, which was cool. And I sort of progressed from that into telesales stuff. So I ended up running some pretty big call centers in the Yorkshire area, doing all kinds of.
Like, how many people were in? Like,
I think the biggest call. We had a few businesses that, I mean, they're interesting businesses. There's kind of boiler room, direct outbound things, and again, especially back, you know, in the mid 90s or whatever, it was a different world. There wasn't the internet, you know, there was, and that was how you did things. You called lots of people. So you know, we had 200 or 300 people at its peak, sort of on the phones. And the big shift for me with that came when all of a sudden the internet was a thing you could use to do lead gen.
Yeah.
And somebody said you should get a website and use this thing called Google, and that'll be amazing because you can just pay for people who are looking for what you do per click. Yeah. Like every time they come on your website, that's when you pay them. Like, this is fantastic. So we paid 10 grand for a one-page HTML website, and priced. That's what that seems legit. I don't know how does this thing get on the internet? What is the internet? But that replaced 150 people cold calling in a call center pretty much overnight. And I suppose it was kind of one of the pivotal moments in my journey, going from years and years of door knocking, telesales, data, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I remember we launched this website. I built the ad campaign because nobody really was. You just did it.
Yeah.
So there was, you know, this Google campaign number one, ad group number one. There was no kind of naming conventions or anything clever digital marketing stuff. 25p a click for life insurance. As a broad match.
There are certain people listening to this who are in that industry who will just be feeling sick about now, right?
Now it's you know, it's 150 quid a click or whatever. But and we put this ad up at life insurance, and on the website it came in via an email. We were old school. The email came in, the first one. I remember printing it off, running down to my number one closer. Listen, Dave, you've got to close this. Whatever you do, mate. And you know, I'm on his shoulder as the sale, you know, running the sales floor. And he's like, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Whoever it was. You know, so we've got your information through from the website. It says here you're interested in some life insurance." Yes, that's right. Wow, this is a lot easier than, you know, trying to guilt trip somebody into, you know, what are your kids going to do when you die? She wants it already. This is fantastic. And of course that closed. That, you know, we closed that because it's order taking at that point. And now I was just like, this internet thing is going to be pretty big. We should definitely do more of this. And like I say, we closed a few call centers because we just replaced it with lead gen from the internet. So when I but
I think that's really interesting, because I think there are similarities to that with what's happening with AI at the minute in terms of how it's changing the whole game, right? And I think there's a myth sometimes that people have about the way I'm currently generating leads in my business is always going to be the way I'm going to generate leads in my business. Yeah. And I think you have to realize that how you generated leads this year, probably last year and next year, they're all going to be different. and what works, week to week, month to month, stuff changes. But I think that whole kind of like one sort of shift in technology can fundamentally change an entire business model.
Yeah.
And I think we're in the middle of that right now. In the same way, I had a dot-com business, blew up during that time. And you look at it and it feels very similar to that now with the whole AI thing. It feels like it's the Wild West at the minute, a bit like early days of .com. It feels like it will get far more sophisticated once it all gets dialed in and everyone really understands how to use it. But right now, it feels like lots of people are abusing it because they don't know how to use it.
Mm.
And I think you're seeing a lot of people just who do not understand what they're doing with it use it really badly. And that was the same with the internet. So it's no different. There are good players and bad players, but I do feel like that's a really interesting story because I think its similarities are incredibly like the parallels are very similar.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, we've seen that wave of behavior a few times through in my career in digital marketing, which I'm one of those people that obviously spans that gap between one day when door knocking and telesales in people, and the next day we're using a website.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big shift. And, SEO was a thing. And, you went from hiding your keywords all over the page and doing all these tricks to kind of get up Google and buying Google ads. And then social media came along. And I think what we've seen with each of these kind of blips on that landscape is it's got quicker every time.
Yeah.
And so now I think what we're seeing with AI is it's exponentially quicker, the change in which we're seeing. And so I'm certainly predicting that the stuff I'm seeing happen and the messages I'm receiving on LinkedIn today are not going to be working in 6 to 12 months time for
I think less than that. I think faster than that. I think you can start to see stuff that looks and I want to talk about this later kind of in the conversation, but I think there's a shift in terms of, say, social net to more kind of social networking, but a lot of what's happening you would never do in real life.
No.
A lot of what people are putting in the DMs in LinkedIn, you would never say to somebody if you met them for the first time.
Yes.
Hello, by the way, can I send you a link to come hang out in my Zoom room and talk to me about my products? Like, are you insane?
Yeah.
No. And I think there's a lot of people who are still playing the game of, if I do enough, if I throw enough mud against the wall, some of it's going to stick. Still, there's still that mentality, right?
And by the way, that still holds true. It is that it was true when I was knocking on doors. If I knocked on 200 doors in a day, I would get 2 people that were interested. There would be 2 people that were in market, and really, even if your message is awful, that will happen,
right?
And so that's. I think that's one of the most insidious things about that, though, because you can convince yourself that actually, I don't forget about all these people I'm annoying and forget about all these bridges that I'm burning. I got 2 leads today, so that's fine. They'll forget about that one day. Well, that doesn't really happen with the internet these days. You send a message on LinkedIn, it doesn't go away. I'm still there 7, 8 years, 10 years
still
later.
There.
Still a stream of craziness. You've got to be mindful of that. And so, I think. I think it is changing very quickly, and I think as well as that, what we're seeing is the stuff that used to work because it was actually personal, because it was a human showing an interest, and that's what we want to feel that people are interested in us. There are all of that psychology that goes with that whole building rapport and all the rest of it. And so a prime example of a tactic that was great was, before you could just send your bot to go and listen to my podcast from 7 years ago and then quote it at the beginning of an email, if somebody had actually gone and done that, it was like, oh, wow, the guy's found me on this podcast. Now he's shown an interest. He's listened to some stuff that I've shared. That makes me now want to listen to him. Whereas, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm at the forefront of it, but every cold email that comes into my inbox now, every cold DM that comes in that starts with, oh, Mike, I saw your podcast, I read your article, blah, 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 blah. I just go, did you though, or did you just get your AI bot to go and do that and summarize it and then use it as a custom placeholder in your outreach?
Yeah.
Because if you did, it's basically meaningless.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, cool, let's have a conversation. That'd be really nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's the danger at the moment. It has never been easier to personalize at scale. And
that's true. Actually, I think that's a big thing. I mean, I go back, long in the tooth to back when I was learning from people like Dan Kennedy, and we were talking about personalized direct mail and how powerful that was. and the fact that you could then personalize digital print to have things that were hyper personalized, and the uplift in response rate that went through the roof as a result of that. And I think we are seeing more personalization than ever before, and it's getting. I think that's one of the challenges, is to cut through that. How do you keep things human in a world where so many people are trying to drag them into just automation, digital, AI, and they're losing that human connection, right? And you and I are big, I've run networking clubs, franchise with 18 different clubs around Oxford's biggest networking club, I think, for about 11 years. And we're both fundamentally at our core great believers in the power of a network, but as a human to human connection piece, right?
Yeah, massive. I mean, and we were saying about this offline before. The pace is so fast. I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years' time.
No.
I would give myself that label of futurist. I like to think about where things are going and try and be ahead. There's stuff that's not been invented that we don't know about that we're going to be using all the time in 2 years' time. So what's that going to do for our businesses? Well, it's nearly impossible for us to predict that. What I can predict is, if I've got a bunch of people around me that know, like, and trust me and whatever else, I'll figure out a way to make a good living from whatever it is we're doing down the line. And I think for me, it brings a degree of certainty. I've been basically self-employed my own life, my whole life. I've always had business, and I've always figured out, I've never had investment into a business. I've always bootstrapped, always paid for things with my own money. And people say, well, I can do that. Especially if you're working a 9 to 5 or whatever, and you're making that leap into entrepreneurship. The uncertainty of it all. And I always, do you know what? With the network that I've built up over the years and the friends and the relationships that I've got, I'm fearless, because quite frankly, if I needed to get a job on Monday morning, it would be a quick post on LinkedIn and somebody would hire me for a decent amount of cash, do some work for them, because they know that I'm good at what I do. And if they need that, great. So, I think it can't be understated, in a world where AI is going to take over more and more and more, replace more and more people. Having strong connections, having that tribe, having that community might just save you completely from whatever's coming.
Well, there's a reason why I've always said your network is your net worth. But I think a lot of people treat that asset, let's call it, because I think your network is an asset. They treat it terribly. And I mean, I've recently started working with a CEO of a company who met me and connected with me on LinkedIn 19 years ago when he was a salesperson, and I happened to train a sales team that he was in for my second ever client. But he connected with me on LinkedIn, and he's not an ideal client at that point. And for the next 17 years or 18 years, he wasn't. But when he got into the space, he was like, right, I'm now running a business that's at a level of scale that I don't know how to get it from here to the next level. I'm the first person he messages on LinkedIn. And you go, well, that was a 17, 18 year incubation period in that relationship until he was ready for what I did. But he's been seeing me, he's been watching me, he never commented on anything, never DM, nothing, until he was in that mode of like, right, I need some help, let's reach out. And I think sometimes I've seen it, and look, I've been guilty of it at one point in my career of trying to get quick cash out of my LinkedIn network rather than focusing on adding value. Certainly back in the early days on there, I did that, and I think and fell foul of that, and rightly so. But I think the more I've just shifted to build the relationships and build the trust and add the value. And this is where I really want to kind of dive in with you in terms of let's talk about the 7 kind of steps and the 7 ways that people should really be thinking about LinkedIn. But let's just talk first of all, most people obviously listening to a business podcast like this, but why LinkedIn in your opinion, and why are you so invested in that as a platform?
Well, like it or love it, it's called monopoly. I mean, if you want to connect with business people in a social media style environment, you've got to go on LinkedIn. It's that simple. You can't really do it on Facebook, you can't really do it on Instagram, TikTok's its own whole thing going on. What else have you got? You haven't really. There's that or nothing else.
Right.
So that's a bloody good reason in the first instance. You've not got many options in actual fact, because LinkedIn's absolutely monopolized that. And what you've got to recognize with LinkedIn, and I mean, aside from the fact, I think they've just ticked over 1 billion users.
Well, I think it's 1.6 actually. I think it's something like that anyway.
I'm talking about active users.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's an insane amount of people. It's, people often talk about abundance, and the exercise I always try and do is, and I asked ChatGPT this, I can't remember what the answer it gave me, but trying to just visualize what 1 billion people.
Oh, it's insane.
It's very difficult. It's like sacks of rice type things and all the grains of rice, whatever, something like that.
It's like if you do $1 billion, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
like
it's
it's like
exactly-
32 years. It's £1 million or something times $1 million times 32 years. It's insane. You can't get your head around how many people are on the platform. I think so. Like, look, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, first of all, number one reason is it's where your customers are hanging out, right?
Yeah.
Point number one. Point number two, it is a platform that is, I think, right now massively underutilized by most people.
Yeah, it's and it's blowing up. It's you know, and obviously I've been around this stuff in earnest 12 years, and using it for a long time before that. I built my digital agency using it. The stuff that we teach now is, I was still, fundamental stuff, still working from back then.
Yeah.
But it is getting. It was cool when I was first using it. It's like really cool now. And the other thing, of course, is for good marketing, you need good data. That's like rule number one.
Yeah.
And you could, Zoom Info, there's all your data brokers, you can go and buy data or whatever. LinkedIn's the only place where people have got an inkling to actually go and personally update their stuff and share stuff on there.
Yeah.
So which people often overlook that. It's one of the reasons, like, you've really got to be on Sales Navigator, because the filters and the stuff that you can do on there means that you can really build lists of your ideal client. And that's what you need to be doing.
So let's just talk about that for a second, because I think there's this whole conversation that goes around about, should you be free? Should you pay for Sales Navigator? Is Sales Navigator just for recruitment agencies, which is quite often a misconception I've heard people say. Obviously, I've got a couple of clients in recruitment and they've got recruitment licenses in LinkedIn, which is a completely different thing, totally differently, very expensive. And obviously is the high ticket product that LinkedIn is selling. So, but in terms of, for most entrepreneurs, most business people, what's your take? Free versus paid for the sort of sales nav, or there's 3 levels, right? Just walk us through the levels on LinkedIn.
No. So the quick answer is Sales Nav for the win, definitely. The reason for that is, on the free tier, you've agreed when you signed up, and when you read all of that small print, as you do when you scroll to the bottom.
Every time. Every time.
One of the things in there, they have a commercial usage agreement, which basically, so you've agreed when you signed up to LinkedIn to not use it commercially in any way, shape, or form on a free tier. So, by the way, you shouldn't do that. I say this tongue in cheek, obviously, being the longest established developer of LinkedIn automation software. That's a whole other conversation. But the implications of that is you're going to be reduced on search, so you can't do as many searches, you can't see as many things about people. So you're limiting your data points, essentially.
Yeah.
But more importantly, LinkedIn do police that. And so you've got to remember, if somebody's going to abuse LinkedIn, they're just going to create a free account and connect a bot to it and just spam people. And so it's really easy for LinkedIn to keep a bit of control on that. Just ban free accounts. Just lock them up, make them send in the passports or whatever, and beg for their accounts back every week. And it's going to put the majority off from doing that. So if you're going to use LinkedIn at a level that's suitable enough, we'll talk more about the 7 steps in just a moment. But if you're going to be doing that stuff, then you just can't do it on a free account.
So you just said to me, and I did it, but I just want to get your take on whether you think it's worth the time and effort. Is it worth the time and effort to go through uploading your passport to verify your account?
Oh, God,
yeah. That is, so if you haven't done that, you should do it, correct?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, especially as there are, by the time we've had this conversation, there's another 500,000 bots on there probably that people have unleashed. So yeah, we definitely need to prove humanity more than ever.
Yeah, great. Okay, cool. I mean, I agree. I'm just checking I think it's, you want to verify that you are who you say you are on that platform more than ever before.
As an aside, I think we're going to see a massive rise in technology that allows us to prove our humanity, because it's going to be so important to be able to do that online. But going back to the plans, if you're good, so if free is not going to work, forget that altogether, and therefore, I'm going to have to pay for it. What do? There's premium. There's standard premium subscription. That's just good old fashioned LinkedIn.com. It lets you do more searches on there. Let's see who's read your profile and some other bits and bobs. But I think it's about $20, 20 quid more, you get Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator, aside from the cool CRM-y type things that you can do and some insights that you can get, what you really get is amazing filters for your data.
So just what? Okay, because I'll be honest, I have it. Still, probably don't use it very well at all. If
Well,
I'm
you
honest.
actually do
Well,
because of
I
what
mean,
we're doing.
as in personally, do I go on and use it? No. I mean, and one of the things that blew my mind when we had a conversation was I said to you, "Oh, look, we've got this event coming up, Scale Up Summit." And I said it'd be really great to invite a load of CEOs to that event because this is an event for CEOs and founders. And you said, well, let's have a look on Sales Nav and see how many are in London that are tagging themselves as CEO and founders.
Mm.
And I think it was about
Yeah.
3,600 from memory. And I was like, gobsmacked. There was that many people who tagged themselves as that just in London. Forget globally, just in London. But B, the fact that you could pull it up that fast, I think that was when I went, hang on a second. If I went to a data organization and wanted to buy that, I mean, that's thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
pounds. Now, obviously, I don't get access to all 3,600 of them immediately, and I've got to have a system for connecting with them and building a relationship. But the fact that we could even find them
Yeah.
by their own self-labeling, essentially,
Which
yeah,
they're motivated to keep up to date as well. So it is
yeah,
the most up to date B2B database in the world.
right,
That's what it is. Why do you think Microsoft bought it, being the owners of Dynamic CRM system?
yep,
It's a strategic buy for a database. That's what they bought.
yep. Okay, that makes sense.
Powerful. That's sales nav all the way. For that extra 20 quid, you can add the filters you can do, the searches you can do. If you're serious about growing your business, it's 20 quid. I mean,
Well, like compared to having a salesperson or a cold telemarketer, for example, go back, you'd pay way more than that to have someone hit the phones to talk to nobody for most of the time. It's not even an hour's worth of telemarketing now, is it? Let's be honest about it.
No, it's barely a cup of coffee, isn't it? In London.
In London, anyway, yeah. So let's talk 7 steps then. Let's just dive into this because I want to kind of unpack some of this. So, walk us through the framework, and then we can either go. Do you want to give us the whole 7 first, and then go deep?
Yeah.
So give us a 7 at a high level, and then we'll go into each one, right?
Work through each one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth just setting the context of where this idea of these 7 steps came from.
Yeah, great.
There's not an infinite amount of stuff you can do on LinkedIn, but there's a variety. There's lots of stuff you can do. And when I kind of came up with this 7 steps, it was because after literally it was at the point we've been going sort of 10 years. I'm looking at, and by the way, at this point, I've seen 10,000 plus accounts being managed through the various agencies that use our systems. So I'm very fortunate to have that vantage point of seeing who's really messing the job up, who's getting really great results, what are they doing differently,
right?
And talking to just great networkers as well and seeing how they're using our systems, how they're applying them, how they're interacting with them. And I realized that it's the 80-20. We see this a lot in business. There's 20% of stuff that if you do it really consistently, and by the way, that's the most important thing beyond everything, as with all stuff in business, is that consistency element. But if you do that consistently, you build a brilliant network, people like you, you cream off leads all the time, you can go back to it whenever you want and pull from that and do promotions or whatever. And it works really, really well. And actually it distilled down into these kind of 7 behaviors.
Yes.
People just doing.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a better word to put it on it, to be fair, rather than steps, because I think they are behaviors, aren't they? They are kind of commitments to your network almost. And I think for me, too many, I think there's an epidemic of short-term thinking right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's killing people's ability to build long-term value in their network and their business.
Yeah. No,
because people are going, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work. I've done it for 30 days. I didn't make any money out of it. And I'm like, if you went to 2 live in-person networking events and never met anybody that was of any value, you'd suddenly go, networking doesn't work. Of course, networking works. Networking works. It's been working for centuries, decades, forever, where people have been hanging out and talking and meeting people. Yeah. So it's not the networking doesn't work. It's that you haven't learned how to network correctly and you haven't done it consistently in the right order over a long enough period of time to get enough data points on it, to be fair. A lot of this is data points, right? Yeah. So most people go on LinkedIn, and my experience, and I've had this with clients, is if people post consistently for 90 days, they start to see significant things start to change. But again, it's that, you have to have a level of commitment to your future that I talk about. It's like, it's not just going, LinkedIn is a platform. It's like, no, this is an investment strategy. You're choosing to invest time and a little bit of money in the case of what we want to talk about, but specifically time and a little bit of money to build an asset that's going to be worth literally millions of pounds to you over the next 5 years of your life. There, you couldn't, if you wanted to buy property that would be worth millions of pounds, you got to raise hundreds of thousands of pounds. Like the barrier to entry here is actually pretty low.
Yeah.
And yet most people still can't see that opportunity. And I think what I want to do is really kind of get people to have that light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, if I don't do this now, 3 years from now, I'm going to look back and realize that not doing it was a really big mistake. Like I look back and go, I remember working with a client of mine who was a franchise in the property space, and he said to me, I think it was about 15 or 16 years ago, he said, Paul, you need to be buying property, like whatever, to start buying. And I was like, I'll get around to it when. You know that story he said? I'll get around to it when I've built the business, when I've made enough money, when I've done this, I'll get around to it. And I look back and go, biggest mistake that I made, not just buying and holding and starting, because with 15 years later, the amount I'd have made out of that one decision would be huge. And I think the same's true with LinkedIn. If you look at it now and go, right, if I'm committed to this for the next 5 years of my career, 10 years of career, I'm committed for it for as long as I have a career or want to have a career. This isn't something I ever plan on stopping doing now. This is just like part of, like, in the same way of exercising, drinking water and breathing are the things that I would always do. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think you have to make that mental switch to go, this is just going to be part of my daily standards. This is going to be a part of my daily standards every day for as long as I ever want to do business with anyone for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think if you make that shift first, everything else becomes easier after that.
Yeah. And it is it's not a fad diet, is it? It's not
No.
that drop in and in January when you're making your resolutions. It is that investment, and it's, to your point about time, it's very difficult to force a proper relationship.
Yeah.
I've not figured it out in all the time I've been doing this, and certainly not with technology, to actually just have the time yourself when you're busy running a business, to take time out from that to go and spend some time with an individual, whether that's online on Zoom or whether you actually go have dinner or whatever.
Just connect, right?
They're the best business relationships. They always will be. And I mean, interestingly, the thing that tipped me towards LinkedIn was back when I was growing the agency. I thought, networking, I'll do it through networking because that's the way to do it. I've done all this direct sales stuff. I want to do networking. And so every morning of the week, I'm at another breakfast meeting with another full English that's very mediocre, and
it's terrible for your waistline, that strategy. I'm just saying,
it's not a healthy way to go a business. Don't get me wrong. You meet people. You can pick up work doing that stuff, depending on what your business is. But the thing that really jumped out to me about the LinkedIn piece was I'm paying 20 quid to be in a room eating a breakfast I don't want to eat at a godforsaken time of the day when it's pitch black. And there's one person in this room who I'm not going to actually get to speak to, so now I've got to go follow up with them online anyway.
Yeah.
Or I could just get to work at 9, have a coffee, connect with 20 people that are my ideal client on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 of them will speak to me.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds better. I'll
do
that.
Do that. Yeah. And stay healthier.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do the 7 steps. Do you want to just walk us through high level what they are, and then we can come back and unpack some of them?
Yeah, precisely. So the first step is you've got to build your network, right? You've got to connect with people. And I know that's, for some people, I still get this now, and I suppose I get so immersed in these things that I forget. But there's still that kind of mentality of, you should only connect with people that you actually know and have met and all this stuff. And you'll notice LinkedIn used to be quite forceful of that. They would kind of put, you should, and they still do, but I think it's just a legacy of those old days when they were very encouraging that, because clearly everybody's connecting with people that they've met on LinkedIn. So how else would you do that? So I think you've got to do that. So the first habit is connect with 20 to 40 people a day, and that number is simply based on the fact that LinkedIn will allow you to connect between 150 to 200 invites that you can send a week is kind of the upper limit.
Right.
So that's cool. Let's do that then. Let's lock in as many new people as we can, because the reality of
But you do need to know who, right? Because you shouldn't just I mean, I think you've got to go back a step and go, who is my ideal client? Who, and most people, that process of getting clarity. I posted a video about this the other day. There's 3 things you've got to get clarity on, but one of them is you've got to get really clear on who your ideal client is. And I think sometimes we drift away from, or they've changed, right? Like they've changed. They were this 3 years ago, but that market's now
Yeah.
not got the same issues, or the money's not in that market for what you sell. So you got to look. You got to
Yeah.
constantly review that, I think.
Yeah, you do, and equally, and I mean, another mistake I see is people connecting with like people in their industry and think it's like, why? I mean, they're probably competitors, are they, in the most part? So I think you're right. And absolutely, this whole process works because you've done some thinking around
Yeah.
what is it that how is it I actually help people and solve a problem,
Yep.
and who is it I'm solving those people for? I mean, it is kind of the very basics of marketing.
Yeah.
So you've got to get that work done before you go out,
Yeah.
because you'll know you won't know a sale and it's looking you in the face if not. But
Yeah, or you just
assuming you have.
you'll be randomly connecting with
Yeah,
people, and it won't make sense to them or to you as to why you're connecting with them.
yeah. I mean, it's worth pointing out, because this is an often overlooked feature of this approach, which is maybe you don't know yet. Maybe you're not quite sure. Maybe you're still trying to find that product market fit. Maybe you've come out of your corporate career, you started a consulting business, and you're not quite sure what that framework looks like yet. I love LinkedIn for figuring that stuff out quickly. And it's better, again, it's better than any other medium I've come across for doing that kind of, because people, when you're not reaching out the pitch, people are quite open to things. And
Yeah.
so, if you're reaching out saying, "Hey, we've just started this new venture, it's really exciting. We think this is how we can help people like you. Wouldn't it be cool to just spend 15 minutes and talk about, how the implications of this stuff for you? I'm not here to pitch you. I just would really love your insights.
Yeah.
If you could spare 20 minutes." And people are open to that. Like, I mean, today alone, I'm sure we've booked hundreds of meetings, because I know we've got campaigns running just along those lines. And the insights that you can get from that very quickly. I often say to consulting clients who I realize when we start, you don't actually know what you're selling, do you? And like, well, I think you think we do, but have you sold any? Well, no, not yet. It's like, okay, let's go and validate. Let's actually go to market. Let's use it for market research. So there is that opportunity to quite quickly start connecting and having conversations with those people. And I've had clients who I've said, look, you've got to go do 20 of these calls. You've just got to reach out to these people you think you can help, sit down with 20 of them, and by the end of it, you'll have a really good idea of how it is. And they nearly always come back with a couple of clients on board, because through that process, they've gone, okay, now I know what it is. And now, brilliant, great stuff. Going forward, we just know that they're exactly the people we need to connect with.
Yeah,
It's
love it.
great validation possibilities as well.
Okay, so reach out.
Connect with
Definitely.
people, 20 to 40 a day. When they connect, DM them, little
Yeah.
message. Don't try and pitch them.
I hate that. That drives
horrible.
me insane when somebody I accept a connection request. Do you have a rule for like who you connect, like accept? Do you have like is there a, I remember somebody saying to me they didn't accept a connection request unless they had at least 5 people in common or anything like that. Do you do you put any kind of parameters around who you accept connection requests from?
Um, I mean, I think that's a personal preference.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got their own standards, their own opinions, and their own thoughts around that. Arguably, if somebody's I mean, if I can see that it's blatantly obvious somebody's literally connecting to pitch me,
Yeah.
that's a pretty much a red flag.
Yeah.
So for me, that would probably be one of the biggest red flags. If it's like there's literally a pitch in the invite note,
Yes.
I'm like, mate, come on, I've not got time for this. Just call,
Yeah.
email me.
But people do that, which is crazy,
they
right?
do. Yeah. Well, again, it's just overlooking that fact that actually I'm building an asset here as well as generating some business.
Yeah.
And the two go hand in hand. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of acceptance, I mean, there was definitely a point in my life where I would just accept anybody. I think everybody's, anybody's.
Yeah, I think we go through that, right? It's usually when we're chasing vanity metrics, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. It's usually when we go, I want to get to 5,000 followers or whatever the number.
Well, I mean, by the way, I think if you're just getting started on LinkedIn, and I'm talking like sub 100 connections, you're literally brand new to the platform and just getting going with it. There is an argument for actually just getting connected to a bunch of people. That first 500 connections could pretty much be anybody.
Yeah.
Simply because, LinkedIn works by 3 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
And if you're not connected to anybody, you're not going to see anybody in the third degree next.
True.
Worth doing for that, just to get some reach so you can actually see the people.
Makes sense.
But beyond that, then for me, are they potential partners? Are they potential clients? Do they just look like really cool people? Are they trying to pitch me? Cool. Well, let's connect then. Let's see where that can go, because we don't know. So yeah, nice little welcome message. There's a couple of reasons I think that's an important thing to do, especially within the kind of the strategy that we work in terms of, actually generating business without annoying people. You want them to be comfortable getting DMs from you, because we're going to have to at some point say, oh, by the way, we can help you with this thing. Do you want to have a conversation?
We do actually sell
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and whilst we don't pounce on somebody with, you know, a dozen attachment PDFs and my calendar link or whatever it is, we need to set that scene. So one, we want them to get used to get DMs for us, and two, when you're sending DMs to people, when you're connecting with people, the LinkedIn feed algorithm is going to see that and go, oh, we should probably share these people's content to one another because they're talking. So I guess they'd be interested in that, and that'll keep them on our feed longer and see our adverts. That's what we really want.
Okay.
So tactically, that's a really interesting thing, and we'll talk about content as we get on to kind of habit 6 and 7. But it's easy to fall into the trap of vanity, and I think there's a whole discussion we'll probably get into about.
Not sure we've got time to do that as well as talk about the 7. To be honest,
yeah, that's probably a separate conversation. But you know, that trap of chasing likes, chasing impressions on your posts, all the rest of it, posting every day, posting multiple times, just on my way down. So
yeah, you were telling me like how many impressions has some of your content had in the last?
Oh, I mean, yeah,
a million plus or something.
1.8 million impressions I've had this month
Right.
so far.
But how much business did it generate?
None, basically. It's just nonsense. It looks good though. You know, I've got 500 likes. Woo! Not going to pay the bills, but
no, you can't take them to Waitrose and pay for anything.
No, I can screenshot.
There you go.
No, yeah.
For days when you don't feel like you're a good
massage.
human being.
Yeah, just look at that. 500.
Okay, so kind of connection message, welcome message. That's an important thing. And again, there's some stuff around best practice to do with that and what not to do. And don't try and pitch someone immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to get a conversation started if you can. The sooner you can start chatting to somebody, the sooner you get to know them. So, optionally, that, you know, we'll often do that kind of thing and just ask a question that gets people going. And you get, it depends what the question is. I mean, one of my favorite questions. I know you've got one of your own, but when I've got the time to engage and I've got the bandwidth for that, I'll often say, "You've read any good business books lately?" Because I'm just, with a business book there. Yeah. I consume business books at a rate of knots.
That's a great question.
And I'm always looking for recommendations. So it's great to get, you know, and I get some great recommendations.
Yeah.
Actually, Amazon, like, I'm straight away. Oh, man, that's awesome. So that's cool. But I think the thing to bear in mind with all this stuff in terms of copywriting these messages,
yes,
it's not really a thing. It's there is some skill, there is some tactics that you can use, for sure, and there's an approach you can use. But essentially, it's not an email platform. That's the biggest mistake people make. It's a chat platform that most people consume on a mobile device.
Yes.
So long-winded TLDR messages, just mental. So whatever you're sending has to be just a punchy little thing. One of the exercises I do when I do kind of corporate trainings is, listen, when you're sending a message, send it with one hand on your mobile phone using your thumb. If your thumb's getting sore, the message is too long. They're like, get it? It's like, that's the reality of it. It needs to be a short, snappy message. So that's what we're sending as a welcome message. Habit number 3, looking at who you're actually connecting with. Because, you know, you're going to, if you're sending out invites consistently, and certainly if you get some help with that, like, as we'll talk about, it's quite easy to abdicate completely that ownership of your network. And actually it's really important to spot those people, especially if you are delegating that work out, which is the smart thing to do. It's really important that you're still connecting with those people, because there will be just those VIPs that you can tell immediately. And we've all got this sort of spider sense, I think, in our businesses, that you see somebody's profile and it can literally be a photograph and their headline. You go, that is somebody I need to be working with. It's really important that you actually get into the habit of looking at that and you know, if you are using any kind of help beyond that, actually taking the time to intervene and do that. So you got to be looking at who's viewing your profile. And as we said, you know, locking those people in as well. If you've not already connected with them, you know, the acceptance rate, which is a metric obviously we track when we're doing this stuff, it's north of 90%. If someone's come and viewed your profile, and you send them a message saying, "I saw you was on the profile. Do you want to actually connect?"
Yeah, do you want to connect too?
People go, yeah. And again, I think that a lot of that comes back to this. Oh, well, I don't know somebody. Maybe I shouldn't be sending them invites to connect or whatever. I mean,
I think there's a fear. I think there's a fear that a lot of people have about, you know, what happens if LinkedIn, you know, take my account away, or if I do something that possibly gets, you know, me banned from the platform, and I don't want to lose it. So I think there is a fear to that.
Yeah, which is valid.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, you know, pay for sales now for a start.
Yeah, I mean, the funny
bulletproof.
thing is, if you're paying for some of their products, they tend to have a little bit more flex in what they tolerate.
Yeah.
If it's free and you're trying to use the system and abuse it, then like if you deserve to get what you get with that. But I do think there's an interesting question there around when you said if people getting help. I think one of the biggest questions I'm always, and we've had it in my masterminds groups where people have debated this, and some people are using a tool, some people are using VAs, whatever. And there's always somebody in the room will say, I've read the terms and conditions of LinkedIn and it says you're not allowed to give anyone else access to your profile. And I'm in a world where we're all out, we are using third-party people in our teams, we're using remote teams. It seems quite an outdated sort of TNC, but I just wondered what's your take on that? If somebody says that to you and they say, well, that's great, but I'm not, I risk losing my account. I mean, I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize my account. It's a valuable asset, right? But I'm just curious on, what's your position on this?
It's a much asked question, and something to give some proper consideration to, because you're right. I mean, any delegation of anything on LinkedIn is technically against their terms, and therefore if they wanted to uphold that and say no, you can't be on here anymore, then I mean, by the way, they can do that anyway, of course. Good friend of mine, big LinkedIn guy, been around longer than I have, accounts shut down the other day. He's come to work, can't shut down. I mean, he's living out LinkedIn.
Wow,
what have I done? Not doing anything in actual fact, just sharing content. And it turned out that their algorithm had decided that something he shared was inappropriate. I mean, it was like a nice post about focusing on your business. I mean, how that's inappropriate on LinkedIn, but it was obviously just kind of a weird false positive. But I hear these stories every week. I've a good friend who, again, makes a living out of LinkedIn. They're an influencer, 200,000 followers, genuine followers, in the blockchain space. Get up one morning, LinkedIn accounts gone down. Nobody wants to talk to you. Not important to them. So I think, there's a point there in itself, which is actually LinkedIn is bloody brilliant, but you should probably have mechanisms in place to actually make those relationships and take them off of LinkedIn.
Yeah, so such a great point. I think any platform, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, or anything, where you think, you own that data, you don't. And I think there's that whole conversation about like how often should you, it's a good question actually, how often should you export your contacts in LinkedIn into a CSV file and take them into a CRM or something like that, which you can do, is my understanding, right?
You can, yeah. I think a better way to do that though is to have mechanisms, whether you're allowing people to opt in for white papers you've created, you're running lunch and learns, whatever, some value where you're actually adding value and building that relationship, and then using that as a mechanism for getting that data off of there and locked into stuff that you've got ownership of.
Yeah.
Sure, that is a really important thing to be doing.
Yeah.
But going back to the question with regards to kind of account safety and all the rest of it, I mean, first things, it's so apparent. I see people go, this sales navigator thing, I'm just not sure I've got the value. And especially when they're using systems and we're like, well, we've got the data now. That was what we was paying for. Well, yeah, kind of. And it's a little bit of a protection racket. You are, in some ways paying for the privilege to be on there and doing this stuff. And as somebody will turn it back to free. Think they get, a warning or whatever. You need to tell us you're going to behave yourself and stop connecting with people.
Yeah.
So it is valid and it is a consideration. But I think, I built a whole business around this stuff, and it definitely used to keep me awake a lot more in years gone by when, LinkedIn was a bit more flailing around. These days, the LinkedIn automation industry alone's worth about 250 million.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, so if there isn't a tolerance, I mean, there is. There's no doubt about that. I think what it boils down to though is, what are you doing on them? Whether you're doing it manually, whether you're delegating it, whether you're using a tool to automate some of it, whatever you're doing, what's the behavior?
Yeah.
And, I know a thing or two about, ensuring that automation is detectable. Obviously, that's kind of my background. You can't hide the behavior there, and that it's kind of like a black hole. You can't, nobody can actually see the black hole. They can see everything else getting sucked into it, and that's how we know that it's there.
Yeah,
it's the same with detecting, that kind of thing on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
if somebody's behaving like an idiot, spamming people, it doesn't matter the tool.
None of us want you on there in that case.
Exactly. That.
Not just LinkedIn. The rest of us don't want you either.
Yeah, exactly that. And ultimately, that's the they've got to protect members. As much as they don't talk to you when you need them to, and they are a big kind of faceless corporate to some extent, in my opinion. They have a requirement to protect their members, because without doing that, people would leave the platform and not come look at their ads and buy their subscriptions anymore, which is what their shareholders need them to do.
Yeah.
So I think that, there, and getting back to kind of the 7 steps, really what we're looking at, that 80-20 idea, it's like, well, you don't need to be, and again, it's a mistake I see people making, doing just tons of it's like, wow, that is overkill. How do you even know what's going on?
I think
do
that's
the basics well.
I think that's such a great point. I think there's an assessment. There's a lot of people out there, that are saying, you need to be on it for 3 to 4 hours a day to make serious money out of it. And I know you have a view on that, and I do as well. And I think I've got caught in that trap at times where if I look at my phone and find I'm spending 2 hours a day on LinkedIn, and I'm like, hang on a second, this shouldn't be taking this amount of time. No. And I think there's a question there about, right, okay, great. How do we ethically, and with integrity and from a place of connection as a human being, integrate and work with people on the platform? And if you come at it with that standpoint, I think, like, you wouldn't walk into a room like we are here, where we are. You wouldn't walk into a room here networking with people you'd never met and start walking up to them and go, do you want to jump on my Zoom call? Do you want to jump on my calendar? You wouldn't do that. So, like, why the hell would you do it? Just because we're in a digital world doesn't mean you should do the same thing, right? You absolutely shouldn't. So I think we're only at 3. Yeah. I think we're only at 3. What's number 4 and number 5?
Number 4 is LinkedIn's got this really cool feature where they let you know when people are starting a new job, when they've been in their job another year, when they're having a birthday, things like that.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with nurturing a list, nurturing an audience, is having a plausible reason to remind them that you exist.
Yeah.
LinkedIn are just serving us that up on a silver platter. Here we go. We can keep in touch with timely events. So that's the next behavior, really, is actually, use that catch up tab and look at, okay, it's this guy's birthday. Well, what a nice opportunity to just
catch up,
some good wishes.
Connect, catch up.
It's another little touch point. The guy's starting a new job. Well, actually, maybe there's a need for what I can do, because I know he's the guy who's the project manager, the facilities manager, the CEO, whatever it is. Maybe in this new gig, he's going to need my help. Well, I'll just wish him all the best and say, by the way, if you need any help with that, I'm here. It's just a call away.
I had a client of mine recently in the IT services space who just picked up a massive client because somebody changed jobs exactly like that, and they reached out to them and said, hey, look, congratulations, best of luck in your new job. If we can ever be in any service, come back to us. About a month later, they came back and went, I've been here a month now, I've analysed everything, we need your help, can you come in and let's have a meeting? And you go, like, again, little thing, but massively works. And I think it's that you don't want to be cheesy when you do it and go, hey, happy birthday, do you want to buy any of my stuff this year? And all things like that. But I'm amazed actually, just thinking back on it, in my experience on LinkedIn, I'm amazed how many people will do the immediate message after connection. That happens a lot. I mean, that's kind of like, all right, like, actually very few people do the either birthday one or anniversary one, because I'm not getting the birthday one, yes, you get not happy birthdays, which is really nice, which is great. But actually the anniversary or change of jobs or new business or stuff like that, I don't see lots of people really taking advantage of those, what I would call touch points, right? Just the little touch points.
Direct lead gen. I mean, I've got clients that's literally their entire strategy now, because it wins them more than enough business.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I mean, I teach this on one of my trainings. I call it the butterfly effect of a birthday message. We would not be sat here right now doing this podcast if it were not for a happy birthday message being sent by a mutual friend of ours, Andy, to another mutual friend called Thomas, who ultimately introduced me to another mutual friend called Derry. Which leads directly to us being sat here.
That's
today.
True. That's true.
And that's totally true. That was a birthday message that got sent probably 8 years ago now. And we once tried to calculate how much business that had generated with the various offshoots and like this whole butterfly effect of, if you went back in time and Terminator or whatever and stopped that one event in history, that one little message being sent, how much business would that cancel out? And it was millions and millions.
Which is great. And that's the thing, is that I think never underestimate the power of one relationship. I remember running a seminar once and only 5 people showed up. And I remember being really kind of like, negative before the thing started, and because there were only five, right? And then my team went, look, there's 5 people in the room, right? Just like, and I remember ringing my coach and at the time, my speaking coach, and he went, yeah, but what if one of those 5 people becomes someone that changed your life? Like, and I was like, fair point. And I remember doing that presentation, and 4 of the people didn't do anything with us, and one of them did something with us. But not just that, that one person led to about 5 other relationships over the course of 3 years that ended up doing stuff. And then they led to other people. And I look back and go, if I'd have just had that really kind of appalling mindset about numbers
Yeah.
and not depth of connection or the value of one relationship, I would have blown off, probably, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds worth
Yeah.
of business, because I had that at that point in my career. I had a very much of a short-term view of like, oh, there's not enough numbers for this to work. And I think even if you've only got, because I think the other one on LinkedIn, there's very out there at the moment in terms of being pushed, is that if you haven't got 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 followers, you just can't make any money on LinkedIn. I've got clients, I know you have, who've got small networks, 5, 6, 800 people, but they're very high quality and they make great money out of LinkedIn. And I think that have to get out of the mindset that I have to have it's just a good excuse people give themselves, I think, for not doing it, isn't it? It's, I haven't got a massive network, so I can't, whatever, insert the goal you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, where you only need one person to buy from, you've got a client.
Yeah.
Like literally, I often talk about 1,000 good connections. There's a very famous article by a guy called Kevin Kelly. You might come across it, 1,000 True Fans.
Yeah.
And the idea being that, as if you're creative or whatever, if you've got 1,000 true fans that are all willing to spend $100 as it is, American, you've got 100 grand a year. You can live quite comfortably on that, whatever it is that you're doing. So actually focusing on that, and that idea mapped to, if I had 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, that actually know me, that actually like me, that are interested in doing some work with me, and I could, on average, it's the same equation. If I could take 100 quid off them, I can live all right.
Yeah.
On 100 grand a year just off 1,000 connections.
Yeah.
And by the way, my clients are generating 3,000 a year on average.
Yep. So we're up to birthday messages, or what we'll call the butterfly business strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next after that?
So we've got connect with people.
Yep.
We've got send a welcome message.
Yeah.
We've got
build rapport. I'll put it in that category. Welcome message. Build
engage them.
Yep. Engagement.
We've got check new connections, check who's your profile. We've got congratulations messages. We're on to the controversial one.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Love that.
The one that people say, oh, you should never do that. Actually send a message to somebody to say, by the way, I do this thing. I think it could help you. Would you like to have a chat?
Yep.
A promotional message. So I actually say you should be sending, depending on your account and all the rest of it, anywhere between 20 to 50 promotional messages a day. And what I don't mean by that is exactly what we've been talking about and slagging off this whole session, which is,
spam.
Just crap that's not targeted, not relevant, all the rest of it. But it could be as simple as, look, I'm running a webinar. Look, we've got this new program launching. I thought of you. We've got.
Well, you said to me, I think the phrase that really resonated for me and what I really liked was you said, ask a hand raised question. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, I like that, because you're not saying to somebody, can I sell you this, right? Which is that whole kind of push versus, it's very much pull versus push mentality. You said to me, let's just ask a hand raised question. And, mine's, hey, look, we run certain events. We got an event coming up, would you like some information on it? Yeah. That's it. And if it's like a no, then no sweat. Yeah. If it's a yes, oh, great. Okay, cool. Let me send you a link. And it's like, awesome. It's like, I love that phrase. For me was like, just ask a soft, respectful hand raised question that gets people to decide whether they want to know more or not. Yeah. And they're not, without you trying to go, hey, do you want to know more? Would you like to jump on my Zoom link? Here's the link to my calendar. Like, whatever. Like that. No. Just ask, look, we do this. We run a monthly lunch and learn. I've got a client of mine who does phenomenally well with monthly lunch and learns, and puts sort of 20 people on a call for half an hour going through a specific topic. And he does exactly that. Like, would you like to attend one of our lunch and learn sessions? It's like, oh yeah, do you know what? I actually might be really interested in that. Yeah. I think that hand raise, that was the phrase that kind of got me over the fear of doing that. Because I had that fear. I was like, I don't want to come off as sleazy and cheesy. I don't want to come off as pushy. I hate that about my industry, when people try and do that to me. And I think if people have had a negative experience on LinkedIn, it's very easy to think that's how they'll be perceived,
Yeah,
right?
agreed. No, it's and there is a bit of psychology to the reason that we ask these sort of hand raiser questions. That's exactly the phrase we use, because what you can do very well using a DM on LinkedIn is generate interest. You just create that interest in somebody. It takes me back to the days when when I used to knock on doors trying to sell double glazing to people, and you would we would drive a van out with a bunch of guys or whatever, and we'd go and hit an area, and I'd find myself on a housing estate that's newly been built. Double glazing was already a thing in the 90s, so it had double glazing as standard. You're like, what the hell am I going to do on here? And I can't create interest in that, and all you can do is capture people that are in market.
Yep.
And so we sold them on conservatories because we would just go around and see, are you interested in thought about putting a conservatory on the back of your nice new house?
Yep.
And a small percentage of people go, actually, yeah, we would be interested in a quote for that. Happy days, great, I've got a quote for it then.
Yep.
So the same is true on LinkedIn. You can't, gone are the days where you can do these cadence. I see people doing like 7 messages that would go out over
7 days, yeah.
And all these, here's a PDF, and here's this that I've created, and here's a video that I've done, and nobody's reading it, nobody's responded to it. As we said earlier, this lives to haunt you another day because it just is there forever in the messaging screen on LinkedIn. So you can't do that. And so, well, what's left then? Well, it's those people like I used to go and look for that wanted conservatory. It's the people that are actually in market right now.
Yeah.
And any familiar with the work of Eugene Schwartz, wrote a very interesting book on advertising that's very famous.
Yes, absolutely.
There's those kind of stages of awareness that somebody may be at, and the stats, I can't remember the exact name of the study, but the work done around that, the stats are that 6 to 9% of people in a B2B space will typically be in market if it's, it's not a brand new thing to market or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's solving a problem, and that again goes back to your list, goes back to your offer. But if you think, oh, okay, 6 to 9%, and round that 5 to 10% of people then should be interested if you ask them the right question. And so really that's how that kind of approach, we map that to we call it the build campaign. That's the way we implement this. But it's essentially that process of I'm going to connect with somebody, I'm going to engage with somebody, then I'm going to ask them this little hand raiser question. And really all the hand raiser question is doing is trying to capture that 6 to 9% of people who are actually in market without annoying everybody else who isn't at the moment. And that's the mistake that people make, is they're trying to capture the other percentage, well, I go to the maths on a Friday afternoon, but the other 90%, when they're not, then you can't do that. They're not ready yet. And that's where the birthday messaging and all that actually comes in, because then you're just creating your own look. You're catching them.
Well, you're raising visibility in a way so that if somebody does drift into that 3, 6, 9% category, you're front of mind because you were on their radar, and not in a way that was terrible. You were on there. Now, I think for me, there's a piece here which is the value of posting good content helps with all of this. I think if you're posting crap or not posting at all, if someone asks me to connect to them, I'll often go and look at what have been their last 3 or 4 posts. Have they put anything of value out? Is it, and if they haven't been active in terms of actually posting any content or something, I'm less inclined to want to connect with them. I think for me, it's like, look, you have to think of it a bit like a mini website and go, what content do I want people to find? And I always like the analogy of breadcrumbs. What breadcrumbs am I leaving for people to consume? And I think that's where, the way LinkedIn is set up now, if you are posting content, videos, where it's things of this nature, then, great. By the time somebody gets to connect with you, looks at you, I regularly get comments on videos I posted 6, 8, 9 months ago. Somebody's going through my feed and looking at stuff I did back then as a part of the research process onto who I am, what I do, and how I can help them on their scale and scale to sort of exit journey. But I think quite often that's where we're not thinking strategically about what am I doing. We're in that what I call the dash for cash mentality, right? Which is where the danger is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and which, by the way, thank you for that. That segues quite nicely into the 6th behavior, which is what we're going to do about content then. So basically what we just described there in those first 5 behaviors is just a good, solid, repeatable, predictable 80-20 outreach process.
Right.
And that's, that's kind of the stuff that we help people with.
Yeah.
You're left with concept. So what and you're quite right. You can't not be posting anything. That's not really going to work. That seems a bit, you've got to share something. And it really, this whole thing is, you know, I remember learning, like, somebody once said to me, people have got to know, like, and trust you. It's,
Yeah.
you know, that you can't go networking without hearing that somewhere, if it's a BNI thing or what it is. But so thinking about that trust element of it, you know, if we're doing the stuff, we're reaching out, having nice little conversations with people, we're saying, oh, have a happy birthday, all that. They're going to know you, they're going to like you. That's what we're doing there. Content is about trust. It's about showing credibility. It's about demonstrating that you're an actual person who can do what you really are, an expert. And that's the differentiator. And so, you know, that sixth behavior is we need to share some content on a regular basis. Now, obviously, this is a topic I can get on my soapbox about, and I do post daily. You post more daily.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I think I post pretty much 4 or 5 times a week, depending on what's going on in my world and stuff. But I do think people get hung up about. There's a whole other conversation about content that we could spend a long time talking about, and what to create and how to create. And you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and I just said, look, just stop thinking about that you've got to create something. Just think about that you've got to capture what you're up to, what's going on, what you're doing this week. You know, just
how you've helped somebody.
yeah, what you've helped them with. You know, like I shot a video the other day, which is like, you know, how I helped a client save £500,000 in a negotiation in a 45-minute coaching session.
Yeah.
Like if you're interested in the value of coaching, that video is going to be, oh, hang on a second, well, how did he do that? And I think, you know, and I was talking to this trainer yesterday, and I said to her, look, you're doing lots of stuff. She goes, oh yeah, I'm on site doing this and doing that. I said, all you're doing is reporting and basically, you know, capturing what you're doing and documenting it for everyone to just follow along with you. And if you think about it like that, it's less intimidating rather than, oh, I need to go and create some content, which for most people just puts people in a freeze frame of like, I've got to create content. And yeah, there's tons of more we can talk about at different times about content creation strategies. But I think if you just go, look, and I think the other thing is people have been told a lot, that you have to post every day, at least, or 2 or 3 times a day for LinkedIn to work. And I think
you can
that's
many
not
thousands of pounds to be told that.
But people have paid many thousands of pounds to be told that by people. But I mean, that's not your experience based on data, right?
So there's a couple of ways you can think about this that I normally explain to people, which is you can be a convincer, you can be an influencer.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you can, if you want to build a business around your personal brand specifically, then you probably need to be in that world of actually really focusing on content and posting every day and getting really strategic with all that stuff. By the way, you probably need a significant team behind you to do that properly.
Yes.
So that's a big mistake I see, especially small businesses making, where they've not really got the resources or to do that, be it cash or team. It's a big old thing. I'm talking to a good friend of mine. He just had something with his dad actually. He's just had a Sunday Times bestseller. It's all blowing up for him. He's flying around the world. It's absolutely amazing. He's pushing out some amazing content. And he said, "Oh, well, you know, TJ's bloody." He's got
I know TJ.
Yeah, 10 people on his content team now.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Is it serious?
10 full-time staff managing TJ's content. And, you know, TJ's and worked with Jay Shetty and the Gary Vee, people like that. They've got whole floors full of people
doing content.
And so, especially the smaller business, you're not going to compete with that with the greatest of respect. It's just not going to be a thing. And so if you're gonna go down that route of building a personal brand, you're probably committing to that personally, and it's a big old investment. It's going to take time.
Yeah,
as you and I both know,
yeah,
we're making that investment. And for me, developing that personal brand makes a lot of sense. For you, it does as well. If you're not at that stage in your career or your business, or just you just might not want to do that. A lot of people don't want to. That's not a thing they want to do. They just want to grow the business that they're working on. Cool. There's nothing wrong with that. And so that being the case, one post a week is ample, because as we said previously, when you're sending little nice messages to people, when you're connecting with people, the feed algorithm is going to see that.
Yeah.
It's going to say, okay, next time that guy logs in, I'm going to show this. And by the way, the algorithm's got way more sophisticated over even the last 18 months. I know there are people on LinkedIn that obsess over this stuff. It's going to show it to people that you're communicating with. That's all you really need to know. You know everything now you need to know about the feed algorithm. You can relax. So one post a week, and to your point, if I'm not trying to be an influencer, I'm trying to be a convincer. I'm going to convince somebody that I'm capable. All I need to share then is something that ticks that box. So yeah, here's me, a great example. You know, working with a client, 45-minute coaching session, saving them £500,000 I mean, what an amazing impact that is.
Yeah.
So assuming that you're connecting with your ideal clients, assuming they're seeing this, they're
Yep.
going to see that. So all of a sudden, that impression count, and it's, I mean, as we said, it's just laughable for me to go, oh, yeah, 1.8 million impressions last 28 days. I mean, sounds amazing. Would I have rather that be 50 impressions to ideal customers who are more or less ready to buy? Hell yes.
Yep.
And therein lies the point. So you don't need to, that behavior really
That's the whole
is.
magic in the metrics, isn't it? It's like there is magic in metrics if you're tracking the right stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, most people are not tracking the right things that are happening in that metrics.
Yeah, but it's having those pieces on the board as well. If you're not plugging in that kind of outreach strategy with that,
Yeah.
then one post a week's not going to convince anybody because
yeah, they're not going to see it, are they? Let's be honest, they're not going to see it.
Outreach and neglecting the content thing, you're missing a trick. You probably still generate leads the other way around, to be fair. But
yeah, but I mean, I think my take on it is probably the sweet spot. I think is 2 posts a week minimum. I think, and if you can make one of those posts a video, even if it's just a 1-minute video from your phone, I think, especially with LinkedIn and the way it's going about, really, I've seen it certainly way more visibility of stuff that's on this video.
Shift for views on video recently.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool piece. Yeah. Okay, so where are we up to now? We're at 6.
The last one. I mean, these are the boring ones. They're
but these are the ones that are really important, actually.
Yeah, the last one is just actually creating some time to just engage properly with not AI crappy comments, but actually adding some value. And actually, when it comes to content creation, the content that you create by engaging with other people that's relevant, is huge. And LinkedIn does a really good job of this, showing it in the feed. Oh, he's like this, he's commented on this, whatever. So actually, as much as your post will show up, so will those comments as well.
Yeah.
And you'll know you're doing that well when actually your comment sparks a conversation in its own right beyond the person. The author gets involved, and these whole discussions in public that are really valuable. I've won loads of business from that, just that one thing. So that's kind of I mean, don't get me wrong, there are AI tools that I develop on that can help you get going, because the challenge with that approach is there's quite a psychic load on, it's, especially if you're introvert or whatever, how do I get the conversation going? So, I would never say don't use AI. Absolutely do, but use it in the right way. Use it. Oh, yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And what I often find is when I use tools like that, it'll suggest something. I'll go, yeah, maybe not that, but actually, that's just made me think. What this guy said leads on to this point, and it's just those little sparks of inspiration. So use tools. But
I'll tell you my favorite kind of AI hack thing that I have done in the past and still do occasionally is that you do you ever. When LinkedIn says to you, "Oh, by the way, you're an expert, so you on this topic because you can register on certain topics, kind of do you want? Would you like to answer these questions?" And I always go, "Oh gosh, okay, I haven't got time to answer those questions, right?" But I mean, for me, I'll go through and find the least answered questions because the ones everyone has already answered, there's no value there. I'm going to probably just repeat what someone else. So I go through, find 3 that haven't been answered by anybody else. I'll take the questions and then I'll go and I'll put the question into something like ChatGPT or Claude, and I'll say, right, if you were a CEO or whatever, how would you answer this question?
Yeah.
And then I'll take the answer, but then I will then take it and edit it into my voice, my thought, and I'll use that to stimulate a response rather than just have this question. And I'll go, oh, that's cool. That actually gives me a different perspective. And that then allows me to kind of create content which is very authentic and in my voice, but I use it to kind of spar off.
Yeah.
And that for me has been, I've got some great engagement of people who've read answers to questions that I've used that process for.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a discipline of like once a week I'll sit down and answer 3 questions like that I get asked to. And again, it's minimum standards, isn't it? It's like, right, this is part of my ritual. And one of my mentors always said to me, he said, you realize the people in life who get rich have rituals. And that's because the first 4 letters spell rich, right? Like if you want to be rich at rich life, rich energy, rich relationship, you have to have rituals. And I think then it's, I call it a content contribution ritual for me. It's like I'm going to go and contribute content without any expectation that it's going to do anything for me necessarily. I'm just going to go and add value and put cool stuff out in the world.
Yeah.
And stuff will come back, right? Like there's just no way it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's that turn up with that mindset of, look, I've got half an hour a week where I just sit down and respond to questions and post stuff that I think is going to help people on the journey. And you go, if I do that enough, like the cosmic karmic flow back to me from just doing that is going to be out of all proportion to people trying to push stuff down other people's throats. And I think the best way to demonstrate that you're an expert or have knowledge in an area is to share answers to questions that demonstrate you know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are just, they don't want to take the time to do that bit of the process.
Well, you know, you can only get interest on what you pay into the bank, can't you? And
True.
That's it. I think they're nice to do. Some businesses, it's just not having the time to do some of these things. And I think when it's one of the reasons I've developed the systems and processes I have over the years, because the biggest challenge when you're running a small business, especially, is you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of stuff, you're all over the bloody place, and then the kids get ill, and you've got to do. It's like
hard, right?
Being consistent is the most difficult thing ever to do, but yet the most critical.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think finding smart ways to delegate the bits that make sense to delegate to give you the time.
Yeah.
And I get this a lot with the automation stuff, because you know, there are those kind of zealots that I call them social media hippies. They're just, you know, we should all be just nice to one another, and we shouldn't automate. We should hyper super person. I mean, AI's killed that argument already, because now you can't tell whether it's a person or an AI that's personalizing it. But that idea of you know, automating things is evil. It's like, well, it is if you're tricking people or you're just doing shady stuff. But actually, if it's, look, I've got to connect with 40 people today. I'm not even good. I mean, I'm just going to send them an invite. I'm going to click a button. That's all I'm going to do. Why the hell would I want to waste 10 minutes of my life doing that, or 20 minutes or more, when actually there's so much more value if I spend that same 20 minutes
creating an article,
exactly,
answering questions, contributing rather than just doing
and
this.
so, and that's always my argument for the automation piece.
Yeah.
It's like, well, automate those ridiculous things that a human should not be doing to give you the time. I'm not saying delegate completely. I'm saying create the time, use smart technology, use tech, use services, whatever, to build that time that's you, because it's precious.
Yeah.
And it's profit, by the way. So use it to pay in, and you're right, it'll pay dividends. And I mean, that's like just an overarching thing, isn't it, with this conversation? You know, I mean, I'm a digital marketing guy, I like to think, and so I like to see numbers. I like to see metrics.
Yeah.
I like to analyze the data. I want to know what my analytics are. I want to know what my ROAS is. I want to know all that stuff. And it's kind of, I live in this weird kind of dilemma of, it's really hard to do that with business networking as a metric. There's almost a little bit of faith in that. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can start to track what you're generating.
If you have to believe there's a part to that just, it's hard to measure, like the butterfly effect stuff.
Exactly that.
You can't measure that. But you can in hindsight, you just can't go forward. So you have to have a level of faith that if you do the right things for long enough going forward, you will get the payback.
Correct. That's exactly it.
So we've talked about the 7. Just kind of run through all 7 very quickly. So we've just got, just run me through all 7.
Yeah, we were connecting with 20.
Yep, connecting with 20 to 30 people.
200 a week. How do you want to do that?
Okay, cool.
We're going to send
welcome message that's not cheesy and sleazy.
Yeah, exactly that. We're gonna look who's looking at our profile, who's connecting with us. Get on top of that, engage with those people.
So actively engage with people who are in and around your profile.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
We're going to send congratulations messages to them.
So we're going to stay visible.
We're going to keep in touch. We're going to nurture them, essentially.
Love it.
We're going to try and sell something to them with a nice little hand raiser message.
Yep.
We're going to post once or twice a week.
Yep.
And we're going to engage. We're going to comment. We're going to
contribute.
Add some contribution.
Contribute some value. Love it. So I think if people listening to this are a bit like me, because when I went through that 7 with you, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing some of those, but I wasn't doing all of them. And the fact the bits I really wasn't doing was the outreach or the hand raise stuff or everything. I was just creating lots of content. And I sort of realized that I was missing at least 4 of those 7, which I think was a real kind of wake up call for me. It was like, oh, hang on a second. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, this sounds great, but that also sounds like quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
What like let's kind of just transition if we can for the next kind of like sort of 5 or 6 minutes or so to go, look, what's the solution to that? and then let's tell people who want to find out more about that, like how they can do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there are multiple solutions in actual fact. I think it's
Okay.
worth kind of quickly visiting what are the options.
Okay.
I mean, well, for me, it's not an option, but do it all yourself.
You could do,
Spend
yeah.
an hour and a half or whatever a day.
If you've got the time and you've got the patience,
Yeah,
you could do that.
Yeah, exactly that. You can. It's a good use of I don't know how you value your time, but
Most entrepreneurs won't have the patience, let alone the time.
yeah, exactly. So that's probably out of the question. So, I mean, option number one is you can go and buy these tools off the shelf now. I've developed one myself.
Yeah.
They all, I mean, obviously mine's the best.
Obviously.
But they all pretty much do the same kind of thing now. And AI is just going to get more and more capable of doing stuff for you.
Yeah.
The challenge with it is, I know firsthand what a technical pain in the neck it is and how easy it is to mess it up. So if you're not very techie, if you're not very patient, using the software will probably not work for you. And so I meet people all the time. So, I've used Dripify, I've used this, I've used whatever, and it didn't work. I'm pretty sure I can make just about any tool on the market work really well. I think it's probably what you was doing with the tool, not the tool itself. So you can do that. That's probably the cheapest option, but there's a steep technical
learning curve,
and there's risk with your account. It is, if you can inadvertently do the wrong stuff, and then you're putting your account at jeopardy, and that's
fair point.
not a thing you want to do. The other option is hire a VA or delegate somebody on your team, and have them use a tool.
Or do the things we've been talking about, right?
But either do it.
That's probably a good hour to an hour and a half of work a day for somebody, right?
Yeah, easily. And then they've got to kind of do it right. And so option three, I mean, obviously we're kind of building, and not to be too pitchy and stuff, but I could see there's obviously an opportunity there as we've been working together. It's like, well, actually, we could probably help people for not a ridiculous amount of money, tick all of these boxes, get that benefit, and grow their businesses. And I think that leads us on quite nicely to the work we've been doing around LinkUp. And exactly what we're looking to do there, which is find people who do know what they're doing, who can take advantage of the AI, take advantage of the automation, but have the expertise sitting behind that as humans to actually support you in that whole process.
I think for me, the reason why I kind of wanted to jump in with you is because one, I experienced it firsthand, which was massive. Two, for me, when I talk about having a grown-up business, we talk about, you've got to level up your thinking as the leader, or you've got to, team up with the right people on your team, which is critical. You've got to scale your sales. There was always a kind of like fourth bit for me that just where does building your network, where does that fit in? And for me, just when I got to work with you and I saw the power of not just the tools that you've developed, but the team that you put together with the tools. And I think that's the differentiator, right? Is that this isn't just a out of the box piece of tech. This is team and human beings that onboard you, set it up for you, coach you through it, put it all together. And I was like, well, what we want to do is help people be a world-class connector, which is definitely a goal. But in order to do that, you've got to link up with people, and that's why for me, link up is the fourth bit of my growing up business formula, which is kind of missing, because we're teaching people to level up as an individuals, to team up with the right people, to scale the sales, to scale up what they're doing. But we are nowhere in there are we teaching them to link up with potential investors, for example, it might be, or linking up with potential partners or joint ventures partners. There's so many different ways you can link up with people to help your business kind of create value and to become that grown up business. And I think that was where we're becoming a link up connector for me was just what I wanted to teach people how to do, right? It just fitted right. It's like you want to be a connector because you're on the platform, but you also want to link up with the right kind of people. And that for me was where that kind of, I sat down and said to you, look, I want to be able to put a proposition together that's not just a piece of software, because I don't really want to do that. I actually want to put a service together with you in collaboration, link up with you to help people connect with the right kind of people that they want to build a grown up business. And I think that for me is where I'm really super excited about what we're doing. And obviously, if you want to find out more about it, there will be links below in the show notes that you can either go and literally book a demonstration if you want to put a demonstration on it. You can do that, or if this sounds really exciting and you just want to kind of go to the page and get going on it. And we really are talking for less than hiring a VA for a few hours a week is what we're talking about. This is going to cost you. So, and I think for us, we wanted to make it a price point that was super affordable for people, so that they could just get in and get going with this, right? And that's because that's what that's what impressed me when you onboarded me, was that I got this personalized service. I got it all set up, and within literally a couple of days, I was messaging you going, "Hang on a minute, there are people responding to what I'm doing, and and I'm getting inbound leads." And I was like, "Wow, okay, this is really cool." And I've never believed in promoting something I haven't either used or bought or has solved a problem for me. So that's why I'm really excited about this and what we put together and what we built it. And I think the fact that it really does solve all of the seven, like, what do we say, the habits, the seven kind of like the 7 areas you need to be consistent in. Other than the creating the content bit, which you do, but we've now created time for you to create that content. And I know we're planning on putting together some short courses as to help people with just how to do that as a bit of a value add, as well as some kind of coaching across as we go forward. But for me, I'm excited about the whole idea of helping people become a link up connector. I think it's
exciting. I think that and it's I mean, literally from that, because obviously I onboarded you. I was like, I'll give you the VIP. I will onboard you personally for this thing, and that was the thing that it was that kind of full circle of I've got this LinkedIn stuff that I've been doing for a long time, and that's great, but actually you bring to the table those other pillars that are really important as well for being that kind of well-rounded thing. And I think you're right. It just kind of completes the work that you've already been doing, and therefore the work that I've already been doing. So we've got just this nice kind of circle of goodness to help people do amazing things with businesses.
And listen, whether the business you're growing now is the business you're going to be growing in 5 years' time, your network is still going to be packed with net worth if you look after it and build it. And the network you're building today will unlock the net worth you want in the future. And absolutely believe that, and I know it to be true from personal experience. So the next great partner, the next great joint venture will come as a result of things that you do today to build your network, and doing it in a way that is consistent, which is the biggest thing, as you said at the very beginning, about people just are not consistent. And so I think absolutely, it really is 7 steps here to 7 figures on LinkedIn. There's no two ways around there, if you consistently apply it. So obviously we'll drop a link below to your profile on LinkedIn as well, and where people can find out more about Link Up.
Trying to sell me something else.
Don't try and send him something. Don't do that.
Well, I might be interested. You can have a go.
But if you've enjoyed this conversation, you've enjoyed the content, connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already connected, and with Mike. And then I think, I would say, look, check it out, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you give something 90 days and you don't feel like it's giving you value, then what have you've just tested the process. But you've been doing this over £100 million worth of business off LinkedIn. It's proven. How much more evidence do you really need that these 7 steps deliver 7 figures?
I think it's the age-old question: when's the best time to start building a network of 10,000 ideal clients? Well, it was 3 years ago. You're going to get 3,000 a year. So the next best time is
now. Today. Today. Okay, cool. So listen, make sure, if you really got a ton of value out of this, please leave a comment below. Love to get your feedback. We read all the comments in the show notes that you leave. And make sure you share with at least 2 other people who want to grow their network on LinkedIn in the next 12 months, because I think they're going to find so much value out of this. The last 90 minutes, we went nearly 90 minutes, which is crazy, right? We weren't planning to go 90 minutes, but we're about 3 minutes away from that. So listen, as always though, remember, look, you get paid on what you get done. So take massive action in the next 72 hours after this podcast. Make sure you write down 3 things you're going to do. Connect with me, connect with Mike, and I would strongly suggest you check out more about Link Up Connector and how to become one. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care. That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from this show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.